The day I pulled into that quiet, manicured neighborhood, I wasn't looking for trouble. I was looking for peace. After 2 decades of hustling in politics, campaign trails, state house corridors, endless fundraisers, I wanted someplace where the loudest sound was the rustling of leaves or the hum of a lawnmower. The house I'd bought wasn't the flashiest one on the block. A colonial with fading blue shutters, the kind of place that had character instead of perfection. It was modest compared to some of the mansions nearby, but it had something they didn't: authenticity. I stepped out of my truck that day, stood in the driveway in my navy t-shirt and jeans, and let the air fill my lungs like I was tasting freedom. I hadn't been there more than a week when she appeared. Karen, mid-50s, blonde streaks fighting a losing war with gray, oversized sunglasses making her look like some bug-eyed insect. She didn't knock like normal people. She tapped, sharp, rapid taps that felt like they were drilling into my skull. When I opened the door, she didn't smile. "You're the new one," she said, her tone more accusation than greeting. "That's right," I said, steady. I dealt with senators and lobbyists. I could handle one suburban queen. "I'm Karen, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association." She announced it like it was military rank. "Well, nice to meet you, Karen. She cut me off. "We'll need to discuss your dues. And the condition of your shutters. They're not regulation." I blinked. "Regulation? They're shutters. They open, they close. Only forest green, deep burgundy, or white. Blue is not acceptable." "Karen, I'm not in the HOA." Her head snapped back like I'd insulted her ancestors. "Everyone in Willow Creek is a member." "Not me." Her thin smile spread slowly, a dangerous kind. "We'll see about that." And with a turn of her heels, she was gone, leaving me with the first taste of the war she was about to wage. Friday afternoon, I came home from a grocery run to find a yellow envelope taped to my front door. Bold letters shouted, "Notice of fine." I tore it open, still clutching a bag of milk and bread. Violation: non-compliance with HOA membership. Amount due: $35,000. $35,000 for refusing to join their little club. I stood there on my porch, groceries sweating, my heart thudding. This wasn't a joke. She was serious. That night, I called my realtor, who laughed when I told her. "Legally, you're not in the HOA," she said. "That property was exempt when it was built." "Karen's bluffing." "Tell that to the $35,000 bill taped to my door." She sighed. "Ignore it. She's intense." Ignoring Karen turned out to be impossible. She escalated quickly. Anonymous notes about improper trash placement, even though I followed city rules. Complaints about my lawn. Every Saturday, I'd be out mowing, sweat dripping, and there she'd be, standing across the street in her pink blazer, arms folded, sunglasses hiding whatever fury brewed underneath. Neighbors avoided my eyes. A couple whispered warnings. "She doesn't let up. Watch yourself." But I wasn't about to bow down. I'd survived worse. Still, her presence itched at me, made my peace feel poisoned. Saturday morning, I was tuning up my Harley when Karen stormed up the driveway with 2 men in tow. Both wore navy polos with the HOA logo, khakis, and the self-importance of rent-a-cops. "Mr. Thompson," Karen began, crisp as glass, "we've given you warnings. You refused to comply. Effective immediately, the HOA is filing a lien on your property." I stood, grease on my hands, heat in my chest. "Karen, you can't. I don't belong to your HOA. You have no jurisdiction." Her smile was razor thin. "We'll see what the court thinks." The 2 polo-clad parrots nodded behind her. I told them all to get off my property. But the letters that followed, real lawyer letters, proved she was playing dirty. For the first time, fear slipped in. What if some judge, drowning in paperwork, rubber-stamped her nonsense? What if she actually dragged me into a nightmare? But she didn't know who I really was. That night, I walked the neighborhood. The air was cool, the streets empty, porch lights glowing like watchful eyes. Willow Creek looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. Families were tucked inside, but I knew behind those shutters lived fear, the kind you don't talk about. Fear of crossing Karen. I shoved my hands into my hoodie pocket and let the streetlights wash me in silence. The calm hid the storm that was coming. As I walked, a neighbor, mid-30s, plaid shirt, jeans, was out watering his lawn. He gave me a nod, then glanced over his shoulder before leaning close. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Give her hell." It startled me, but it also lit something in me. The people wanted freedom. They wanted someone to finally stand up to her. They had no idea the man with the blue shutters was about to become the next governor. And when that day came, Karen would finally learn what real power looked like. Election night was electric. The ballroom pulsed with energy, TV cameras flashing like lightning, supporters chanting my name. When the results came in, my name at the top, governor-elect of the state, the noise was deafening. I stood in my navy suit and red tie, soaking it in. I thought of Karen then, of the yellow fine notice taped to my door, of her smug smile as she threatened liens and lawsuits. She had no idea. The man she tried to bleed dry for $35,000 was now about to hold the highest office in the state. I raised my fist, the crowd roared, and inside me burned a single thought. Karen was going to regret underestimating me. While I was celebrating victory, Karen kept marching on with her empire. At the HOA meeting the next week, she stood at the front of that stuffy clubhouse like a dictator. Neighbors sat silently as she rattled off violations and fees, pointing at charts, threatening lawsuits. She had no idea that her latest enemy wasn't some powerless homeowner. She thought she was still untouchable. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. My first day in office felt surreal. I'd walked those halls before as a legislator, but sitting behind that desk, governor's desk, hit different. The weight of responsibility pressed down, but so did the thrill of what I could do. I signed bills, reviewed budgets, met with staffers. But in the back of my mind, there was always Karen. Not because she was important in the grand scheme of politics. She wasn't. But because she represented something bigger. The small tyrannies. The local bullies who thought rules were weapons, not guidelines. People like her crushed spirits, one fine at a time. Now I had the power to stop that. While I adjusted to the governor's chair, Karen escalated her war. She actually filed papers at the county courthouse. Real, legal attempts to put a lien on my property. She marched up those steps with her little army of HOA enforcers, clutching folders like they were nuclear codes. Neighbors whispered about it. Some laughed, some pitied me, but all of them were watching. Willow Creek had always been Karen's kingdom, and now she was trying to make an example out of me. She didn't realize I had more than lawyers on my side. I had the state. One evening, I called in two of my closest advisors. I spread Karen's letters across the table, every ridiculous fine and threat. This isn't just me, I told them. This is happening everywhere. HOA's abusing power, fining people for Christmas lights, mailboxes, paint colors. It's extortion in broad daylight. The younger advisor leaned forward. If you want to make this an issue, Governor, you'll have the people behind you. The older one frowned. But you'll also make enemies. HOAs have money. Influence. I stared at the papers, Karen's signature at the bottom of each one. My jaw tightened. Then it's a fight worth having. A week later, I caught her in the act. Karen, standing at my door, taping yet another fine notice, 35 grand bold across the page. Karen, I said from behind her. She jumped, turned, sunglasses reflecting my face back at me. You're trespassing, I told her. And the next time you tape something to my door, it'll be law enforcement at your doorstep, not me. She laughed, a dry, mocking sound. You don't scare me. I run Willow Creek. Always have, always will. For the first time, I let myself smile. Not for long. She frowned, but I didn't explain. Not yet. That week, I called a press conference. Cameras packed the room, reporters whispering, pens scratching. I stepped up to the podium. Too many families in our state live in fear of their homeowners associations. It's time to protect people from abuse. Flashes blinded me, questions flew, but the message was clear. We were drafting legislation, real reform to rein in HOA power. And while I spoke, while the state leaned in, I thought of Willow Creek. I thought of Karen's smug smile. And I knew her kingdom was about to crumble. The day the story broke, Karen nearly lost her mind. Neighbors told me later they saw her pacing in her yard, phone glued to her ear, shouting at whoever would listen. The paper headline said it plain. governor to crack down on HOA abuse. For Karen, it was more than politics. It was personal. Her empire wasn't just being challenged, it was being targeted. By me. And she wasn't the kind of woman to take defeat quietly. Karen wasn't going to sit quietly while her empire burned. A week after the press conference, she marched straight into the Capitol building. She pushed through the lobby with a thick binder of evidence against me, her heels clicking like gunfire on the marble. Security stopped her at the metal detectors. "Governor Thompson isn't seeing walk-ins," one guard said. Karen slammed her binder down. "He will see me. I'm the president of Willow Creek HOA." The guards exchanged looks, unimpressed. She was turned away, but word of her little scene reached me within the hour. And I smiled, because Karen had just stepped into my world, and here, she had no power. I worked late nights, pushing through drafts with my staff. The Homeowner Protection Act was more than legislation, it was a statement. It set limits on fines, required transparency in budgets, and gave homeowners the right to challenge HOA abuse in court without drowning in legal fees. Every clause felt like a direct strike against Karen's brand of tyranny. And I loved it. But I also knew it was a battle that would draw blood. HOAs across the state had deep pockets and friends in high places. And Karen? She'd stop at nothing to paint me as the villain. While I drafted bills, Karen plotted. She called her allies, other HOA presidents, developers, real estate magnates. They met in the back room of a country club, expensive wine flowing as she spat venom about me. "He's turning the state against us," she fumed. "If this passes, we lose everything. Our authority, our leverage." The men nodded. The women frowned. But Karen burned with certainty. To her, this wasn't politics. It was survival. And she was ready to go to war. The first public hearing on the bill was explosive. The chamber overflowed with homeowners, some clutching photos of ridiculous fines and eviction threats. And there, at the podium, was Karen. She jabbed her finger toward me as she railed against government overreach and political vendettas. But the crowd wasn't buying it. They booed, shouted, held up signs. For the first time, I saw a crack in her confidence. I sat silently, hands folded, letting her rant. The louder she got, the more she revealed herself, not as a protector of the neighborhood, but as a petty tyrant terrified of losing her throne. After the hearing, Karen cornered me in the hallway. "You think you can destroy me?" she hissed, papers shaking in her hand. I looked her straight in the eye. "This isn't about you, Karen. It's about the people you've been crushing for years." Her lip curled. "I own Willow Creek. Nobody crosses me." I leaned closer, voice low but steady. "You don't own anything anymore. Not Willow Creek. Not me. And soon, not this state." Her face went red, her sunglasses sliding down her nose. For once, she had no words. Momentum built quickly. A protest erupted outside one of the biggest HOA offices in the state. Dozens of families gathered with signs, chanting, cheering. I climbed a makeshift stage, tie loosened, shirt sleeves rolled up. "This is about freedom," I told them. "Your homes are yours. Your lives are yours. No more fear. No more abuse." The crowd roared, voices echoing down the street. And across the way, in the shadows, I saw her. Karen, watching, fuming, sunglasses hiding her eyes, but not her rage. She'd started this war, but it was the people who were going to finish it. That night, Karen broke. Neighbors said they heard shouting from her house, glass shattering. Alone in her pristine kitchen, she drank and raged at headlines she couldn't change. For the first time, she wasn't untouchable. For the first time, the Queen of Willow Creek was cornered. And the look on her face, fear mixed with fury, was the beginning of the end. Weeks later, the bill passed. By the time it landed on my desk, the fight had been long, bitter, and loud, but it was over. I signed the Homeowner Protection Act into law as cameras clicked and applause filled the room. Homeowners across the state now had protection, fairness, and a voice. And though she wasn't there, I thought of Karen. I imagined her reading the news. Imagined the sound of her wine glass shattering against her perfect kitchen wall. For the first time since I'd moved into Willow Creek, I felt peace. But peace never lasts long when Karen is involved. The morning after the bill was signed, Karen stood outside her mansion, staring at the newspaper like it was a death notice. Her kingdom had fallen. The fines, the threats, the intimidation, gone with one stroke of a pen. Neighbors jogged past, barely offering her a glance. For years, they'd whispered in fear of her. Now, she was just another bitter woman in yesterday's clothes. The sunrise was beautiful, but for Karen, it felt like a cruel spotlight, illuminating her defeat. Weeks later, I returned to Willow Creek. This was the battlefield where it all began, and now it was time to see the aftermath. As I stepped out of the SUV, I noticed curtains twitching, neighbors peeking, whispers floating through the air. Some faces showed hope, some carried doubt. But one thing was clear: Karen no longer owned their fear. A community meeting was held in the park. For the first time, residents weren't forced into a sterile HOA boardroom with Karen glaring from the head of the table. They asked questions. They shared stories. They laughed, really laughed. It was healing, a slow uncoiling of years of tight fear. Karen showed up, of course, but she didn't sit with them. She hovered on the edge, clutching her sunglasses like a lifeline, a queen without her throne. It couldn't end without one last outburst. Karen stormed into the pavilion, waving her old HOA forms. "These rules still stand," she shouted, voice cracking. "You all signed agreements. You owe me fines, fees, everything." The crowd froze, old fear flickering in their eyes. I stepped forward, calm but firm. "Karen, those days are over. The law protects them now. You can't bully your neighbors anymore." Her papers trembled in her hands. She looked around, searching for loyalty. But the faces staring back at her were done being afraid. And in that silence, Karen realized she was truly alone. Finally, she turned and walked away. No shouting, no threats, no schemes, just a tired woman leaving behind the only kingdom she ever thought she had. The neighborhood didn't watch her go. They turned back to each other, to the children playing, to the laughter that had returned. It was as if she had never mattered at all. Later that night, I sat in my office and let the silence sink in. The fight had been brutal. The cost, heavy. But it was worth it. Because somewhere out there, families were free from the shadow of someone like Karen. Kids were laughing in their backyards without fear of a fine. Neighbors were talking again. And for me, Willow Creek wasn't just where the war started. It was where I learned the difference between power and leadership. Months later, I caught sight of her by chance while driving through another neighborhood. Karen was walking her little dog. No pink blazer, no sunglasses, no entourage. Just a woman in a hoodie, blending into the background. She didn't see me. She didn't need to. Karen wasn't the queen of anything anymore. And as I drove on, I realized something. It wasn't just that she had lost. It was that the people had finally won. Line of the story. Sometimes justice doesn't come with handcuffs or headlines. Sometimes it comes with the quiet sound of a tyrant fading into nothing. If you enjoyed this intense story, smash that like button and subscribe for more gripping, cinematic tales. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss the next thriller. Your support keeps these stories coming.